He is the Democratic candidate for mayor of the great city of Danbury. And we're joined by Roberto Alves. Hey, Roberto.
Hey, Roberto.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you both doing?
We're doing great. So I'm assuming you heard the last segment. How do you want to do this? Do you want to do it in the same order that we did it, or do you want to answer what Dean had to say first?
Well, why do you say that? Do you think there was something juicy there that I might want to jump on?
Yeah, as a matter of fact.
So I just wanted to give you the option to pick.
Yeah, I think that's, let's go. I think let's change up the order a little bit. I think that would be good.
All right, so let me say what he said first in case folks are just joining us. He said because you're endorsed by the Working Families Party that you intend to defund the police. Is that true?
No, but can we elaborate even more on that?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I think if you're endorsed by a party, it doesn't mean you fall under the beliefs the whole party has. And we can say a lot of things about the Republican Party as well as some can say about the Democrat. I've made it very clear to anybody who's asked, I am not about defunding the police. In fact, as a member of the city council, there's also a record on that too, right? And the comical part is that the only person talking about defunding the police is Dean Esposito. And when it comes to budget time, the police ask for X, and the city, the mayor's budget, the one that Dean Esposito gets to work on as part of that cabinet, gives the police less than what they ask for every year. This year, they gave them less for training. And the only folks who were asking for more money for the police were Democrats. It was myself, Councilman Farley Santos, Councilman Frank Salvatore, a couple others, all Democrats. Everybody else just fell in line and rubber stamped what their bosses told them to do because that's what they had to do, not stood up for the guys who needed it. Danbury needs more police officers. I've been saying that. We're supposed to have 155 on the road. We have 132. We see incidents like Ives Streets. We've seen kids shoot each other this year, a tragic death, a shooting at the mall. These are failures from the city of Danbury in funding schools, after schools program, and now we don't have enough police on the road. And they're playing games and semantics here now. And what's really funny is Dean has had every opportunity to actually speak up about it, and only does so when he can get some political points and try to bash the guy who's been asking for more money. When the funniest thing of this whole thing here is he could have stepped up and done something he's in a position to do, and he hasn't, and now he wanted to say things. The way the city budget works, it's on record here, you can look it up, half of Dean's salary comes from the mayor's office. The other half, while the home of his salary is the mayor's office, the other half of his salary is sitting there couch surfing in the police department, right? If you look at the police department, half of the chief of staff salary comes from them. So why hasn't he spoke on this before? Only when it's political. I have a lot of friends who are cops. The Danbury cops do a great job, and anybody can call the chief of police or the deputy chief. So I've had a lot of conversations with them on how I'd love to get them more funding.
Now let's talk about how the defunding the police comment came up. So I was talking about this gun incident, which is under investigation by the Danbury Police Department, and there's been some suggestion since I broke the story. Let's be clear on that. Ethan knows that.
Did
right?
you break the story?
No, there has been some suggestion that it might have been a staged sort of thing. There's no evidence about that to back that up right now, but that's something that I've heard around town. And so what happened was someone discharged a gun, it looks like twice, on Ives Street or in a parking lot off of Ives Street behind the rear entrances of Zona Azul and Hat City Ale House. The surveillance video is in my article at i95rock.com. And I was saying to Dean, and I'll say it to you, I feel this young men, tough guy culture that is cropping up in Danbury. It's just an observation of mine as I'm out on the streets of people brazenly acting in, I don't know how else to put it, tough guy ways, and the ATV thing is a great example, although it's not akin to shooting a gun. It's still guys out on the street committing a crime in broad daylight and feeling like no one's going to do anything. And I'm not being critical of the police department, but what do you think about what I just said?
Yeah, Lou, I don't disagree. I think there's right now, a lack of accountability and respect. And, I think it comes from, it's not just the ATVs, and that incident could have been really bad, right? Thankfully, somebody discharged in the air, but what goes up must come down, right? So it's going to come down somewhere. Obviously, it's not coming down at the velocity it would hit somebody at 10 feet away, the bullet, but it's still something that shouldn't be happening. And I go further than that, the ATVs too. You know how many more red lights I see people run, the speeding throughout town, the quality of life things that if we just had more police officers to address this wouldn't be happening, right? If we held people accountable, listen, we all drive around Connecticut. Connecticut's small. We don't all just drive in Danbury. You guys commute to your office over in Brookfield, either from the Fairfield or from Danbury. You drive around, or if you're going down South 95 line. As drivers who live here, we know what communities we pay extra careful attention to the laws because you don't want to get pulled over. Nobody here is going to speed through Wilton, right? Because we know what's going to happen if we do. Right. And now it's not a knock on our police officers. They just need more help. They need more resources. So if we did that for them here, then we'd have a community of respect in Danbury as well. It's just about respect. But with respect, sometimes you got to teach people respect.
Yeah, and there's a time period in which, and this was not the case years ago in Danbury, there's a time period in which I would not walk down with my family in the dining and entertainment district, the Ives Street. In this day and age, right now, I wouldn't do it. But that wasn't always the case. It was safer years ago. But now there's something cropping up there, and I just don't like the smell of it. I don't like the whole vibe of it, to use a word from my wife, to steal a word.
Yeah, well, Lou, I mean, we've been saying it for a long time here on my side. We want more community policing downtown. And I think if you just had people walking the beat and more cops, these things would probably not happen. If a cop was parked out there, I'm not sure what time the incident was. I watched the video. I don't think that looked staged to me. I think there was the genuine, a bar fight per se was going to happen. And we all know bar fights happen. It took a bad turn there. And it was outside. I'm not saying bar fights are okay, but I remember in my youth when you would go places, or I've heard from other officers, they would just have, when you had more police, they would be out there. And I think that, that presence would change that.
Now, on the school bus thing, because we keep putting it off, I just want to get to it as quickly as we can. There's a shortage of drivers in our area. Parents are upset about this because they have now, you have substitute drivers that they're not familiar with. Now there's a plan maybe to start school earlier for the kids, and they're already getting up super early. What do you think about this?
Well, I think to try to tell high school kids you got to wake up even earlier. I remember my high school bus when I was in high school on downtown Danbury there, right on Sheridan Street. We took us up at 6:30 a.m.
Right.
And if we had to get up any earlier than that, man, I think I'd miss a lot of buses and I'd have to walk all the way to high school.
Yeah.
But we got to find creative solutions right now. It's not a school bus driver shortage, there's an employee shortage. And, those benefits that people were blaming before are gone. And the cost of living has been going up every year, and the rate of employees' wages haven't. Our Democratic legislature, along with a lot of bills that they pass, that are good. I know my opponent before said, there's bills in the works that defund the police. I don't even get into the 2019 but state police contract bill that every GOP candidate voted no on that effectively defunded their police. But another story, right? They always do things that give more. And they increase the minimum wage in Connecticut. That's going up slowly. So increased wages would help, I think. But that's a tough job. I've had friends who have done it. I laughed when Ethan said it earlier. Driving middle school kids is so much fun. It's hard to do. And the buses aren't empty. The buses are full. I see it because, again, stake in the game. My kids go to school here. In the beginning of the year, it was worse. It's gotten progressively better. There were a lot of it, too, was the shortage plus other things that were compounding the issue, right? Because of the pandemic, a lot of parents were driving their kids to school, too, because these schools are so crowded and, they're not built for the volume they have and the population sizes. You had these school buses and think about the dozens, maybe even hundreds of parents also doing drop-off at the same time in these tiny parking lots, where then we had to take even more resources, put police officers there to direct traffic. It was almost a perfect storm of incidents. And then as the parent drop-off decreased a little bit, the timing has gotten a bit better. I know in the last article, the superintendent now said he got about 50 emails with complaints. Listen, those are real complaints. We got to do something. A child that's not getting home from a school till after 4 o'clock is a problem for those parents. That's not good. But let's look at the size of our school and the number of complaints, and not dismiss those complaints, right? 50, for the size of our school district, Lou, which your children are in, that's pretty, that ratio is not bad. But I'm not saying it can't be better, and it can be and it should be.
Roberto Alves, thank you for your time. As always, we'll talk to you again next week.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you. Have a good weekend, everybody.
You
Thanks,
too.
Roberto.
There you go.
All right.
Bye.